but things that were not even allowed to become numbers. So I imagined an argument between humans and everything that is not human. And these other beings were saying, you keep saying we're not numbers and you are upset about it. We would accept even being numbers, but no one is speaking about us at all. The mallow, the mint, the orange, the banana, the moon, the dates, they were protesting in my mind, and suddenly I felt something digging into my back, like stones being thrown at me, and a voice saying, hey, look at me, write about me. If your writing fails anyone, then it's unjust and you are failing us. I froze. Failure, injustice, these words hit me because there are things I never want to touch, and I hate the possibility of causing them. Another voice came into my head. Gaza is not limited in only specific narratives. There are other beings here that have never been mentioned before. I said, okay, I'm here. Don't worry, I will write about you. I picked up the pen and the notebook. I kept thinking, who do I start with? Who do I start with? Who? Then I knew the mallow. So I began with writing a story. I let the mallow speak. I let it express some of its quiet grief. My gut softened a little, but it didn't disappear. Then another voice came. You are ungrateful. What about me? How many times did you make tea with me? Tea, my God. Who is speaking? Then how many times did you pull me out of the ground for your neighbors? I said, okay, the mint. But I could feel that something else around me was unsettled. The familiar stories, the common narratives felt diminished and left out as if I was reducing their importance. So I said, I'm the writer here. I have to hold the space for all of you. Listen, familiar stories, stories of love, stories of war, of water lines, of people suffering like me, homes. Without you, the world would not have seen Gaza. Without you, I would not have been invited to speak. There would have been no curiosity, no attention to us. Without you, we might have remained under the rubble, unseen. Without you, Gaza would not have reached people. We would not have knocked on the doors of them. We would not have entered their homes through our scenes. We would not have been heard even. You are necessary. You deserve to be read. You deserve to be shared. But do not be upset when we bring in experimental stories. Do not be upset when the mint speaks. It has been silent for 2 years. Let it speak now. Do not be upset when the dates express themselves. Then my bed started shaking. I felt like an earthquake. I was afraid. Who's doing that? What's going on? Then Gaza spoke. She said, I'm trying to get your attention. All of you listen to me. Shahid is right. I'm not a single story. I'm not one perspective. What bothers me, what has always bothered me, is being trapped inside one narrative, like being locked in a single room and told this is all you are. Imagine this, like you're kidnapped, you're tortured, you do not eat, you do not sleep, your whole body is in pain, your hands hurt, your legs hurt, your eyes hurt, and your head and everything. Then a doctor comes and asks, what are you suffering from? And you answer with just one thing, only the headache. The rest of the body stays silent, as if the pain in your hands does not exist, as if your legs are not breaking, as if your eyes are not burning. And suddenly, that one answer becomes the whole story. This is what it feels like. I nodded. The familiar perspectives welcomed the new ones, and I, the writer, returned to the page. The results are the stories that were put in today's scene. They found their way into it.
Thank you, Shahid. Okay. Okay, it's hard make a move, but I'd like also to go through, like, I planned this to start with the general, but also to move to speak specifically about each story. And I've asked each writer to read a piece of their writing for each story. So with the first story, it will be Ahmad, then Shahd, then Taqwa. So I'd like to move to talk about each theme. We'll start with the imagination, the land. And Ahmed, I would like to begin with your reading, please, and then I'll ask you a question. تفضل Ahmed.
Sure. So my story is called It Is Time. It is time for the bees to fly and the flowers to wake. The valley's water is a cool vein across my face. The butterflies and birds dance everywhere. The seeds fly in the sky and fall on the ground. I move the ones that fall in the water, to plant an empty patch or give company to another tree. The sun climbs high and yellow above me, rays and waves. Under the branches, in the glimmering shadows, a dove tries to catch a berry swimming in the valley. Too young to fly, too slow to run, it sprints. The berry swims under the trees before the houses. I open a new path leading to new fields, closer to trees the dove never saw before. A haystack and a lonely house, a new path to a new path. The rest you have to read from the zine.
شكرا Ahmed. And Ahmed, we've talked about it a little bit, but I'd like to hear from you, how do you walk between limits of history and creative freedom?
Yeah, throughout the project it was a real challenge. So I always think that Palestinians have used, and I always believe that Palestinians have always used storytelling as both teaching and survival method, especially under surveillance and occupation. So the story passes, all of the stories pass, the story passes between generations, and stories pass between generations were never just an entertainment for entertainment's sake. And it was very, very clear that the occupation and other colonial forces are deliberately trying to cleanse and wipe everything that is oral history or written culture that is related to the Palestinians. So for Sounds in My Pockets, we've used what I would call research-based fiction, in which each of us went on a personal journey into Palestinian archives, oral histories, and family members' histories and what they recall from their own cities. To revisit our ancestor cities before colonial rupture and before the occupation. We tried to map the geography of the place through its agriculture, its social life, the rhythms, and the smell of places. And then, after deep research into our original places and cities or villages, we would fuse that with creative fiction to inhabit that place. So we are re-inhabiting that truth, basically. So we are building on facts and fusing them to fiction. So the fiction, not only, it's not fiction per se, but it complements and completes what archives are missing and what present day, if in an alternative history, Palestine, in the present day, what would they look? These villages and these places, these fishermen and the sellers. So we are putting a body in the landscape that, and also we have the ability to hear a wedding, to see the fishes and smell the oranges at the same time. So there is a balance, but the imagination that we are putting into these stories or into these facts, it's never to replace the evidences that is present in the archives, but only to complement it. So in this way, we're able to close some gaps, but also at the same time close the generational gap that happened with us, because the Israeli occupation was successful in killing so many of the elderly, in that the Palestinians have never written that much of their folklore and their stories, and always depended on passing them orally. So in this way, we are also reviving what we are finding in the archives to pass it even on to the next generation of Palestinians. We also are in an ongoing return to our roots, and we also think that the future generation would do the same.
شكرا أحمد. تقوى, since this theme is about imagination, I wanted to ask you if you think imagination is a form of resistance or a form of escaping reality, or could be both.
Well, imagination becomes resistance when it is rooted in reality rather than demolished from it. So in our zine, imagination is not fantasy, as Ahmed said. It is built from research, oral history, ecological memory, and material observation. And that's why in the first story I gave the land a voice. The land recalls systems that historically exist, communal cultivation, channels, grooves, and shared labor. So here the imagination doesn't replace evidence, it animates it. It allows the land itself to narrate a history that official archives often fragment or erase it. Then in the second story, I give the concrete a voice. Imagination, let me say, becomes a way of listening to material objects. And as we all know, concrete is a material, but here it becomes a witness. It holds laughter, grief, learning, illness, and war. So the imagination is not escaping reality. It is moving deeper into it, asking what the material world remembers about us. Then the olive tree, I give it a voice. So here it allows a non-human life to exist on its own terms. The olive tree doesn't exist to symbolize human suffering. It observes birds, seasons, warmth, and pressure in the air before explosions arrive. So the story attempts to imagine how the world might feel if perspective were rooted in bark, roots, and slow growth rather than human urgency. So I do believe imagination is also a refusal of silence, because if we don't tell our stories, the world will only hear the story of the Israeli occupation, and that's not acceptable. Because storytelling is not separated from belonging, it's proof. So imagination in this sense, it's not scared, it is a way of a narrative, a presence, and the right to exist in history.
شكرا تقوى. Shahid, you also talk a little bit about that you write from the position of belonging to the land. And I wonder if that is different than owning the land. And in what ways? Shahid?
Yes, I'm here.
تفضلي.
Now, I remember that once I overheard my father in a moment I did not fully understand at the time. He said, or that time water was scarce. There was barely enough for us, and even what we had was not really drinkable. At the entrance of our house, my father had planted flowers. Because of the shortage, he stopped watering them for a few days. Their color changed, they turned into that strange gray. They wilted. We thought they were dead. My father said, no, they're not dead. We can still save them. He searched for water and eventually found some. Then watered them carefully. 3 days later, they completely dried out. Their leaves disappeared. That was when we realized that the water had been too salty. It turned out to be seawater. And the flowers could not survive its salt. They died. I remember hearing my father as he walked past them. He was speaking to them. He said, "This is my fault. I failed you. I did not taste the water before giving it to you." That moment stayed with me. That was the first time I understood the difference between owning the land and belonging to it. I remember thinking, we already drink water that is not safe. Everyone is dealing with stomach infections. And I was wondering, my father was not treating the land as something he owned. He was treating it as something he belonged to. The question shifted in this case. It was no longer, what does he get from this land? It became, what does he owe it? How does he take care of it? How does he make space for it in his daily life? How does he do his best to meet its needs? How does he keep it alive, content, and beautiful? The same shift happened in my writing, and that is what changed. Not the land, but the way I stand in relation to it. When I wrote it from the position that I belong to the land, I found myself stopped speaking about it. Instead, I started letting it speak. Not in the usual way, where I brace it or describe my feelings toward it or list what I have left on it. I let it talk about itself, what it has lived through, what has passed over it, what hurts it the most, what might make it feel better, what it likes and what it rejects. I let it complain, laugh, refuse, rest, woke up. And because the story is set before the British Mandate and before the occupation, the experience of writing it was different. I returned to that time. I touched the dates as they would have been. I saw them. I compared their size to what they are now. I imagined their taste. I heard people gathering them together. I imagined the shape of the neighborhood, the houses, the smell of the air. The body became geography in this case, like something of the land, not something moving over it, as if it were just a ground, surface, or structure. Not something that uses it and leaves, but something that belongs within it. If I care for it, I'm caring for myself. If I take from its fruit, it's not because it is passive, without a will or without a voice. It's because it allowed me to. It's not about how many kilos of dates were harvested. It's about how many families were fed, how many hands took part in gathering them. This causes me feeling like if I touch a tree anytime softly, it feels it. It has always felt and it will continue to feel. In the story, the illusion of control disappears. The human is no longer managing the land. The human is operating with it, caring for it, sometimes more than for himself. Not focused on extracting the most from it, but on whether it is happy or not. Even language begins to shift, like an internal awareness that interrupts at the mid of sentence. I would stop and correct myself. It's not my land, but the land that holds us. And in the end, even the idea of death changes. Death is not disappearance, not an ending, it's a return. Whoever dies does not vanish. They go back to a place they have always been part of.
Thank you so much. I really think this event should have been longer, to be honest. Okay. Shahid, thank you so much. I actually, we want to move to the second story, and I want to ask you to read the part. The second set of stories is about materiality and concretely about concrete. And maybe, Shahid, you can read part of your story in this section.
to complete. You protect from rain, you protect from the sun, but why not from rockets? Why do you harden yourself against water and soften yourself before missiles? Let me tell you something, you collaborate with rockets. I'm not being aggressive when I say that. You are the one who leaves no room for mercy. You should have turned into a feather before you fell on a newborn weighing 3 kilos. You should have become weightless. Yes, a feather. I'm not insane. You are the brutal one. How do you fall on an elderly body whose bones are already fragile, already fractured by time? How do you collapse over a gentle young woman who cannot carry a full bucket of water, who cannot lift a stone, and yet you drop on her as an entire ceiling, as a full wall? Do you know who I am? I'm a spirit. I come in the name of the spirits of those who died because of you. They sent me. I come carrying several messages, each from a different source.
Thank you, Shahid. I will move to Ahmed to ask you something about this theme, materiality. Because in this, like the transition from the first theme to the second is like communal land ownership is replaced by a development plans, because concrete is a really central theme in the development plans. How you address this in your writing, Ahmed?
So this is one of the central parts. All of the stories are central, but this is one of the heaviest topics to connect to all of the first and the third story. So after thinking about this, or while thinking about this story or this concrete, the only word that comes to mind is interference. So I do remember at the same time the Native Americans to our west, the Tamils and the Tibetans to our east, Lebanon to our north, and Yemen to our south. So there is a connection through all of these places and all of these struggles to us Palestinians and Palestine as a place. So this part of the zine, yes indeed, it does talk or put focus on architecture and concrete as a material and a promise at the same time, meaning the buildings of concrete and glass, and the think of tomorrow phrase that is usually or all the time said to the indigenous. But I also invite you to see the other hidden architecture that is not very much seen through this theme. So there is architecture that is inside you, inside the Palestinians, inside every one of us on this planet. So our ancestors have resisted colonization, and we in the global south are now resisting colonization and imperialism combined. Our ancestors were did not have concrete hearts or homes, and they were not individualistic by any means, neither in their mindset, nor their language or words, or their way of life. And this quote-unquote development is trying to rebrand individualism and erode communal resistance that is needed for survival. So there is an attack, or a subtle attack, that is taking place in this development, quote-unquote, that in this way it's trying to kick the indigenous and their knowledge out of fashion and out of official institutions and records. So the colonizers will come, destroy your city and its artifacts, and then simply try to sell you the promise that, sell us this promise that is filled with lies, and that the tomorrow is better, and tomorrow you will have a concrete house and concrete development. So they are replacing the indigenous and the multi-generational knowledge and all of the rich histories with this concrete, as I said, total BS, total lies, that is also total concrete on top of people without caring who they are, where they came from, and what color or what history do they have. But the weight, they totally ignore it. So there is a duality. There is so we're seeing how old villages, old Palestinian villages that were built with mud, that is similar to the human, that the cities were built from natural resources, have been destroyed, and now the occupation is promising us a better tomorrow, a Dubai, a Singapore, a New York in Gaza that is built and based on total concrete lies. And that's how I would like to finish answering this question.
Thank you, Ahmad. Taqwa, is writing about what is destroyed help you reconstruct?
Yes, for sure. Because writing what has been destroyed is complicated actually. Because it is never only one thing. When the house collapses, the narrative doesn't end with the explosion. The concrete remembers the boy's breathing, his toys, his handprint, his reading, his drawing on the wall. The destruction removes the physical structure, but the story insists that memory remains embedded in the material itself. So writing destruction becomes a form of reconstruction, not rebuilding the building, but rebuilding the presence of the life that filled it. You know, it's also mourning the act of writing acknowledge loss without reducing the people to that loss. But it's also resistance. Destruction often attempts to erase not just bodies, but histories, relationships, and everyday life. So writing the details, the books, the drawings, the small gestures restores the complexity to life that might otherwise be reduced to numbers. And I do remember Edward Said once said, history is made by ordinary people, by men and women, not just by leaders or politicians. And I do agree with him. And for the Palestinians, all the Palestinians, this means the history belongs to us, but can also be erased if we remain silent. So writing becomes a way of refusing that erasure, a way of insisting that even what has been destroyed, it still holds presence, memory, and meaning.
Thank you, Taqwa. Shahid, take a brief question. I think it's not just you, many of you, and also us, I think, and I am sure many people in Gaza have so much anger at the cement, the concrete, but also at the same time hope, right? Like, because this is how you needed to build your houses, rebuild Gaza. How do you explain this complex of feeling?
Now, for this question, like everything in this life has two denotations or two meanings. There are things that could be positive and negative at the same time. Also, concrete is a thing, and it has the both sides. Now, concrete reminds us all of the idea of rebuilding, of life, of to have a home, to have your own house, the place that you are comfortable in. So it has a meaning that is not just for me, for all people, that gives you a peace for some moment. But on the other hand, when we hear this word concrete, because all our memories, or most of our memories, are related to genocide, to concrete poles on a woman, a child, a window, for example, poles on someone, your beloved one or something. So, concrete for me personally is pop, but I'm trying via my fiction and imagination to always try to always imagine that concrete has a meaning, has a positivity, has a life, has dreams.
Thank you, Shahid. I'd like to move to the story number 3, plural presence and indigenous authorities when non-humans speak. And I would like to start with Taqwa. If you please read a part from your story in this theme. تفضلي Taqwa.
Hi everyone. Okay, I'm gonna read the final part of my first story titled What the Olive Knows. She looks. I see her looking. Sound again. Different. Coming fast. Many. Sky fills. Not birds. Something else. Falling. Everywhere. Ground shake. Keeps shaking. Does not stop. I feel roots dear. Deep, where no light reaches. The small branch breaks, falls. She is running, then not running. Smoke covers everything. Thick, dark, I cannot see her, cannot see anything. More falling, more shaking, more. I do not know if she reached. I do not know if she is still there. I do not know if anything is still there. The sound stopped, but the smoke stayed, thick, dark, for a long time. When it clears, I see nothing. No shelter, no clothes, no small feet, no hand on my trunk. Just gray, just dust. Dust where things used to be. I wait. For her love, for her step, for her fingers on the small branch. Days pass. I do not count. Rains come. Much more gray. But she doesn't come. The new branch gives fruit. They hang, fall. No one takes them. Another season. Another. I stop waiting. Not because I choose to, because waiting has no meaning when nothing returns. Slow, roots hold what they hold. Old ones' hands. Climber wet, smaller ones warm, very small ones first sound. Above, nothing comes, no feet, no hands, no voices. I'm still here, but I do not know if here is still here. The hill is quiet, the sky is quiet, I'm quiet. Maybe she will come, maybe she won't. Maybe there's no maybe left. Thank you.
Thank you, Taqwa, I will stay with you and ask you how did writing from a non-human perspective changed the way you see Ghazde?
Well, writing from non-human perspectives, it changed the skull of the story. In the story that I give the voice for land, Gaza becomes a geological and cultural archive. The land remembers deeds, markets, peace, and the movement of families across generations. Then, in the next story, Gaza becomes a material structure that absorbs human life, every love, every argument, every breath, every crack from war. The building itself becomes a keeper of memory. And in the last story, Gaza becomes an ecological timeline. The olive tree experiences humans not as central figures, but as passing presence. It feels their warmth, their shelter beneath its branches, their disappearance. It continues growing even after destruction. But let me say they refused the reduction of Gaza to a landscape defined only by siege and destruction. They reveal it as a place made of relationships between people, land, materials, plants, animals, and time. So when we allow non-human voice into the narrative, we also challenge the idea that Gaza can be summarized by a headline or a number. Instead, Palestine becomes what it has always been, a living system of memory, life that contains to observe, hold, and grow, even when everything else is being erased.
Thank you, Taqwa. Shahid, I wanted to ask you something which I think you addressed in the first round of questions about how you chose the elements you wanted to speak on behalf in the story of the non-humans. I think you talked really beautifully about your story with the mallow and mint. So I instead would like to ask you if you can share with us one story where you really paid attention to something that is non-human, that it was really like marginalized, no one was talking about it, and really like made you open your eyes about something. Maybe later inspired your story, I don't know.
The air smells rockets and dust. Now, before I begin answering, I just want to say that I have a special relationship with both mallow and mint and dates, and those are the three characters that I chose at my three stories. Now the air, for example, the air smells rockets and dust. We need something that smells good. Mint. My son is crying, his stomach hurts. Mint. We want a warm drink, a quiet moment to remind us that we're human, to remind us that we have a sense of taste, to remind us that what we don't just to drink, we don't just to drink, just to survive, but to feel. Mint. We make a salad, we want something that sets it apart, something green. Mint. We need to plant beside the tent, something that feels like life, like nature is still standing with us. Mint. We make lemon juice, but lemon alone has become too familiar. We want another taste to remind us that there are still varieties, still colors. Mint. We need something small to sell in the market, simple but enough to keep movement alive, to feel that life still circulates, that green still exists. Mint. I am tense, my stomach tightens, everything feels like loss and pleasure and pressure. Mint. A mosquito bites me. They say strong smelled plants can keep it away. Mint. My little sister has been coughing all night. The virus has reached us. Mint. Our neighbors come over. We want to offer them something fresh. There is nothing left in the market to buy as a gift. Mint. We want a thing to remind us that things can renew. Problems do not last forever. Even a siege might end, and freedom is still possible. Mint. So, I think, aren't these enough to give it a voice? Most likely, I did not choose it to be a character. It settled inside my mind, and my mind refused to think of anything else. My stories would not allow any other character in.
Thank you, Shahid. I think this is my last question. My last question to Ahmed before we open the floor for the audience. Ahmed, do you think the non-human temporalities you address in your different stories, seasons, plant cycles, animal memory, do you think they can challenge the human political life?
I do, and I do strongly believe that. So, our human political time is the crisis time, the checkpoint time, the airstrike time, the ceasefire time, the headlines, the wars, the genocides, the empire's time. That's what we have done as humans, and this is not good. So the human time is a time that is always being cut, manipulated, and weaponized against another humans. And occupation, in my belief, is a total technology of time. So and we see it as Palestinians, especially in the West Bank. So it freezes people, accelerates erasure, amputates futures, and just shuts people off of their future and the opportunities that are presented before them, and they cannot do anything. So a fig tree wouldn't and doesn't know that there is an apartheid wall through its roots. A seed under a bombed house will try to grow nonetheless. And an oil tree doesn't consent to the settlements beside it, but it just continues to grow. So the zine, with its stories, has a universal message to everyone. So the zine's message is also my message, that we as humans, just as animals, insects, and plants, are also citizens of this earth. We belong to Earth, and there are simply no spare planet for us. We as human species need to deflate our ego and remember that we are part of this ecosystem. We do belong in the cycle of life, not above it, and certainly not controlling it in any way.
Amazing, thank you, Ahmed. Honestly, I really would like to thank you, all of you, because it's really like this. I hope you agree with me, but I mean this evening opens a lot of perspectives, also questions, opens minds, opens visions, and teaching us a lot about how we can resist reducing Gaza into rebels, indeed. I'd like to open the floor for Q&As. If you have any question, please go ahead. If you want to address to one writer, all of them.
Hi. So first, thank you for connecting them for the cine. I wanted to know, I guess concentrating in these subjects has been a process of elimination, so you have left something out. I would like to know what subjects didn't make it in the cine and maybe will make it in the next one. And also a question about language, because you write here in English. I wanted to know how does it feel different for each of you to write in English or in Arabic. Thank you.
Let's start from Taqwa, and then Shahid, and then Ahmed. I think Taqwa is not there anymore.
Yeah.
Okay, Ahmed, would you like to go first?
Shahid, would you like to go first?
Yes.
Yeah, go ahead.
تفضل الشهيد.
I think that writing in another language, not yours, is a challenge. But Coastal Line Press has a lot of volunteers that actually helped us in this issue. I think that, and I'm wondering that how most of them are not Arabic, and most of them understand some little Arabic, but it's truly useful. Like when I had the chance to, or when I had the problem of not being able to explain myself in English, sometimes I'm so shocked by some volunteers in coastal lines that they know some things in Arabic and they say it like just and through it to let me know that even if you don't know or you don't have the ability to express yourself in English, just let me know the idea in your language and I'll try my best to transfer it, which is amazing and awesome. So I think, yes, it's a big challenge, but when you have supporters and when you have someone just like Layla and a lot of volunteers that tell you immediately and in any time, even if you don't have the ability to express your thoughts in English, then just tell me the idea in any language you'd like. We'll use translators, we'll ask, we'll do a lot of things just to know your idea. And if you feel that even your idea is silly, just say it. And this is itself is an assistance and a really awesome thing to have. So we can say that the language is not a challenge that can limit your thoughts or limit your ideas, so that can pretend or that can let you just stop and never say things or never try to write a zine or never try to join such a work because your language is not English. It's not like that. Just go ahead and you will find people that will support you.
Thank you, Shahid. Ahmed, do you want to add anything?
Okay, I'll try to be brief as much as possible. So regarding the first part of the question, I did have, like personally, I'll speak in my personal capacity. I did strike on a deal with Layla on not to kill any of my characters within these 3 stories, because I do have that tendency. And I did actively omit blood as an element of humans and nature in these 3 stories because of its political symbolism and because of how heavy it is to talk about blood, especially after all of that, what is happening to the Palestinian right now and what is happening around the world, in Iran, in many other places. It's really difficult to talk about that, so I did actually omit that by choice and actively. The second part, I think, yes, it is challenging to write in English, not because of proficiency, but because of how English in its nature is different to Arabic. So in our Palestinian dialect, and I do believe in also Levant dialects, there is this communal language that's inherent, or that is there. I'm not sure how to explain it, but it's just there. The sense of community is always up in the air and in the language, and you don't sense it. And when you do switch to English, there is a sense that it assumes individualism at the same time. So it's hard to push from one side, how the language is centered, to how we think and how we do believe in Arabic. So we're using a Western language to explain Eastern ideas and beliefs and stories at the same time. So there is a challenge, and I do think that the editors do a superb job in balancing this story and the ideas and the language. So there is a relevance to non-Arabic readers or those who did not have the chance to visit our region. So you do get the best of all worlds, and I do believe that our editors are amazing. I am biased. So that answers your question. I hope I was clear and direct.
Shukran, Ahmed. Any other questions? No. Okay then. Thank you so much for being here tonight. Again, I would like to thank Ahmed, Taqwa and Shahid for being with us. It was such an amazing evening, a lot of revelations and things we should carry and think about. Again, I want to encourage you to buy their zines outside, support their fundraising campaigns, follow them on social media, amplify their voices, and look out for new zines, right? There will be more. This project is alive and it's happening and it's going to continue with the help of so many volunteers, and there will be more zines with more writers and maybe more events soon. Thank you so much, and have a good evening. Free Palestine and genocide, because it hasn't ended. We have to say that all the time. Thank you.
Ja, ja. Aber das